Hello, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of The Games We Love, a weekly video game podcast focused on positive and fun discussion, industry news, and more. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron White, and I am happy to be joined by my co-hosts, Kevin Brackett.
Hey now.
And Brad Heyen.
Hey, hey.
We are notably absent one host this week, unfortunately. Jessie could not be with us. We had to record a little bit early because these two guys here with me are planning on seeing Doctor Strange on our normal recording night, and Jessie had something that she had to be doing tonight that was more important, which is wrapping up her HelloFresh sponsorship, trying to meet her goals. So we are wishing her well. We are missing her, but she will be back next week for sure. Well, gentlemen, Doctor Strange is on the horizon. Have you guys been checking out reviews yet that came out today?
I've seen some blurbs on Twitter that's got me pretty excited. I think Kevin even had one. You saw the screening already, didn't you, Kevin?
I did, yeah. Myself and Aaron were lucky enough to see it a little bit early.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm really excited.
Good.
I don't know if
Are
you
you
guys
a
can say anything
Sam
about it.
Raimi
Right.
fan, generally? The director?
You know, as much as I can be. I'm not, a diehard fan or anything, but yeah.
Doesn't
Okay.
sound very...
It's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
encouraging.
I know
Yeah.
a lot of Raimi fans who, he's not what's selling me on the movie, but I appreciate his work for sure. I
Okay.
grew up on Spider-Man, and I know he's big into the horror things like that, and so I'm very curious how much Marvel lets him do his thing with this, because they very much have a formula with what they do. So
They do.
yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how people react to this movie, because it's not Spider-Man Sam Raimi.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
Evil Dead Sam Raimi with a little bit of Marvel control, but a lot of Sam Raimi.
I'm
It's
excited
more
to see how
Sam Raimi than
fans...
it's more
it's
Sam
way
Raimi
more
than
than
it's Marvel.
people are expecting.
Oh.
It's Sam Raimi through and through. And
Interesting.
yeah, how people feel about the marriage of Marvel formula and Sam Raimi is going to determine ultimately where they land with this movie,
Okay.
because it's a thing.
That'll help.
It's a
That'll help
it's
me
a-
set my
it's a
expectations
wild
then.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be fun to see the reactions and talk to people about it for sure. I think. How the rest of your week been? Anybody do anything interesting? Brad? Anybody go for a trip, perhaps?
I did. I drove over to University of Illinois and ran a half marathon on Saturday with some of my buddies. That was the rescheduling of the 2020 half marathon. Of course, we know what happened there. Everything got shut down. I was 11 weeks into a 16-week program to try to make my best half marathon time that year, and didn't get to do that. But this year we had a good time, good trip, played some games, ran 13 miles, and came home.
Doesn't sound like a good trip to me, but okay. I'm glad that you had a great time. I'm glad you were successful and achieved your goal. I definitely am. Now, it's really cool to see the pictures of you on the University of Illinois football field, I think it was.
Yep.
It was
50-yard
Yeah.
line.
It's just wild to me that people would run when they're not running from something like a bear,
Absolutely.
zombies.
That's
I mean,
right
I
there
totally...
with
Yeah,
but when I
it's-
have
it's-
to, I'm prepared now.
Pyramid Head, anything.
right,
Just run.
exactly. The tall lady, whoever's chasing you, I get it. I get it. But no, status quo, same old, hanging out with the baby, watching some movies here and there. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Getting into a little bit of gaming here and there too, which is nice.
He had a
About it.
birthday.
How about you, Aaron?
I was home by myself most of the weekend, and instead of pushing forward on any of the numerous games that I'm currently playing, I decided to randomly start Final Fantasy XII Zodiac Age on PlayStation Now at 11 p.m. on Friday night, and played about an hour and was like, it's too old. And I said, I really miss Final Fantasy 15, and I played it on the Xbox back in the day. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just reinstall that one. So I woke up Saturday morning to it all fresh installed and started playing it again. And I've now dumped, 20 plus hours back into it on a second playthrough. And I've got, delusions of platinum grandeur in my eyes of what I'm going to play this game through to its completion. And I may make it. I've looked at the guides and I don't think it's that difficult, honestly. And it's all content that I want to achieve. So I've just fallen in love with that game, Final Fantasy 15, the Royal Edition, all over again. And so I've been taking some notes, and I'll probably give like a thorough review of it when I finish up here in a couple weeks or so. But yeah, just absolutely, completely immersed once again into that world. And
I really enjoyed that one. I have that platinum from, I think, was it 2015 or so that came out?
yeah, 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Dove right into it and didn't give up.
It's got
It's a
me
fun game.
even more excited all over again that Final Fantasy 16 is coming decently
That looks
soon
good.
too. Yeah.
Good.
It's got me
Wow.
wanting that. Well, this week's listener question is from Andy. And this is a conversation that I had with this listener about this. And so I want to ask you guys first, and then I'll kind of give my thoughts. But I'm very curious how you're going to feel about this. The question in a nutshell is, when do you consider a game, in quotes, beaten? In my friend group, we have a term we call GG, and we call it GG, good game, end of game. There's the GG app that we all use to log our games on. And so we call it a GG when we essentially roll credits or beat a game. But there has been some debate about what that means and how different people interpret what beating a game is. Is it rolling credits? Is it just being satisfied with the game? Is there some percentage for you? So I was just curious what you guys kind of consider as your metric for beating a game.
I'd say roll credits. That's where I'm at. These days there's so much to do to complete a game, and I know I rarely ever do it. It's something where I don't 100%. I don't get platinums. I have one platinum ever. It's just not my style of gameplay. There's just too much to play in too little time. So I think if I beat the story, if it is a story-based game, not something like Call of Duty, but well, I mean, even they have stories, but not like an online type of game. I credits roll, I beat the game, and then all that other stuff is icing on the cake.
I think I'm the same way. By and large, it's when you roll credits, the story's over. It depends on the scope of the game, I think, because there's a lot of different things you can do in bigger games like Cyberpunk and The Witcher and Horizon, all kinds of side missions and stuff that some of it's fluff and some of it's meaningful side stories. So my mindset is, for the most part, when credits roll, but I also am very much a trophy hunter, so I like to get that 100%, and that's, I think, when I ultimately think I'm done with this game. If there's still stuff to do in it, I want to do it. But if I'm, it depends on what I want to do with the game, and that's where I'm at with it.
But like, I finished the story of Resident Evil 2 remake. I think I beat it 2 or 3 times, and I beat Resident Evil 3 remake. But did I get every trophy? Did I speed run it? Did I get the under 2 hour thing? Or like, I didn't do any of that, but I would still tell people I beat those remakes. Like,
Sure,
to me, it's like the main story one time, and then the other stuff is, I wouldn't say I completed it, but I beat it.
Yeah.
So let me toss this wrench in there. What about a game like that doesn't have a beginning A to B story? So when would you consider like a sports game beaten? And I'm saying for logging purposes. So if you're tracking games on a yearly basis that you have completed in a given year, that's the metric that I'm kind of getting at here. How would you account for those kind of games?
I don't know how I would classify a sports game. I would just say when I'm just done with playing it, when I'm no longer interested in playing it anymore, when something else catches my eye, because my mentality is I'm all in on something. Like Overwatch, I would never say that I beat it. That's just competitive online multiplayer for the last 6 years. But I put way more time into that game than I have in any other game probably in history. So yeah, it's weird to think about those games in the sense of beating them. But when I'm mentally done with them, I think is what I would say.
Yeah, that's tough. If there's maybe a career mode, or maybe if you did a season, and again, I don't even know how long that would take, but maybe for a full season, or if there's like, I know in the WWE games, my son really likes those, and there are these career things, but I don't know that it actually ever ends. I don't know. I mean, you maybe become a champion or something, but then you're constantly defending it. So yeah, that's a really tricky one with sports, and I honestly don't play too many of those games, so I've never thought about that.
So for me, I would say those games and this kind of leads into my overall opinion on this that sparked the controversy, frankly, and is that, when I get done, when I feel like I have experienced the vast majority of what a game has to offer, and I've put what I believe, and I feel like it is a moving target. It is a personal, emotional choice of I've put X amount of time into a game. If I put 20 hours into FIFA, playing different FIFA modes, I beat that game. For completion purposes, I'm going to consider that game as I beat this game in 2022, right? Because I've done what I needed to do to know what I need to know in order to make a final decision on how I feel about that game. The specific instance that became the issue for us was Metroid Dread. I played Metroid Dread for 25 plus hours, and I got all the way to the final boss, and I went through multiple bosses along the way that took me an hour to beat at a time. Some of them 45 minutes. None of them were quite hard enough to the point where I quit the game, which is I'm grateful for. I was a little bit nervous because when games get to the point where it's going to take an hour plus for me to beat a boss, that's not fun for me. I don't enjoy that. Well, the final boss, that's what it became. It got to the point where I was like, this is asking so much of me from a skill level that I don't think I have. And frankly, I don't have the desire to spend 3 hours of my gaming time trying to accomplish this one magical, perfect thing to say that I beat the game, right? Because that's the only thing that's left. There's nothing else past this. I've done everything else I could possibly do. And so I'm considering that game beaten. And the pushback was I didn't get credits, so therefore I don't get to call it beaten. And I mean, I'm not out there bragging and like trying to compare myself to someone who beat the boss. I'm not lying about it. I'm just saying for my personal tracking statistics, like I have finished the game and I feel like I've done enough that warrants me being able to say that. So that's where it kind of came from.
I think that's fair. That for yourself, I think that's fair, but I don't think you beat it, and I think you need to beat it.
Oh man, no!
I
didn't want to say it. Like
you're so
you put
close,
your time in, and you can be done with it. But I don't think you beat it.
Yeah, I don't think you did, buddy. Sorry.
No, I need support.
Yeah,
I get it because I've been there, with those speed runs and harder difficulty games. I'm talking about Uncharted again, but there were times where I wanted to just be done with it, like you were with Kingdom Hearts, where like just you get to that point mentally where it's like you don't want to put that time in, and it's just seems too hard. There was a moment in Uncharted 2 where I did not think I was going to beat that train boss, and you get to that point where you just want to be done with it. But I believe in you. I think you can do it. I haven't played Metroid Dread to know what you're talking about, but yeah, that's a hard sell for me.
All right. Well, I guess I wanted to get your honest opinions, and I got your honest opinions. Unfortunately, this is backfiring on me. I was hoping to get some support so that when the listeners hear this, that, that maybe I could have some people on my side. Maybe you're out there. Anybody listening right now, if you're on my side on this, please write in to Twitter, to Facebook page, to the email address, to the Discord, anywhere you can find us. Just let me know that I have some backup, please. I would appreciate it. This is 2 weeks in a row now. I don't need to be the guy that is like always on the opposite end of history because we've got the Mario issue, and now we got like I need somebody in my corner. And if you have a question,
Final Fantasy 12, put down Final Fantasy 15, beat Metroid Dread.
Yeah,
what? Such a waste of my time. We'll see. I mean,
you're right.
If I do, you'll be the first to know.
So good.
Yeah.
I
know it would if I did it. Yeah. I don't know that I can't. I really don't know. Anyway,
you can do it.
I know that you can.
Well, listeners, if you have a question you want to ask us, anything topical, specific, just again, write in, let us know. We like to start the podcast with these each week, so we'd be happy to answer one of yours as well. With that said, let's go ahead and talk about some of the games we have been playing in depth. I know that we've all been playing one specific game, so we should probably start there. That is the amazing Rogue Legacy 2, which I'll start by saying thank you to the developers Stellar Door for providing us all codes to the game, so we were able to kind of get a jump start. I've been playing it for a couple years now, just because my original interview with them was scheduled 2 years ago, and we just got around to it here recently. But they were able to give us a couple more, and so you guys have gotten to put in some time, and I've played a lot of it. I have tons of thoughts. Some of them were on that interview, so I want to start with you guys, and I want to know what you think of it. And I'm going to ask Kevin for you to go first, because you just talked about Rogue Legacy on our last podcast, and now you're going of all of us, you are making the interesting jump of literally back to back within days going from Rogue Legacy to Rogue Legacy 2. So I feel like if anybody has a full perspective here, or a very clear perspective, I should say, on the differences and the changes, you're going to be the guy that will notice them more than maybe me and Brad will. So yeah, how's it landed for you there, bud?
Yeah, so I told you last week I was playing the original Rogue Legacy. I wanted to get a feel for where the game evolved to with this new one. So I played that for about 6 hours. So I didn't get super in depth with it, but it took all my gaming time for last week. And then I said, well, one, I wanted to talk about this new one. So I needed to get a move on. But two, it's like it looked so shiny and new, and I kept seeing stills from it and videos and clips, and everyone was talking about it. So I had to try it out. It is Rogue Legacy 2 is incredible. I've been waiting for this discussion to say to either of you, I just can't believe how good this game is. I loved the first one. I thought it was so great. The mechanics, I saw where all these roguelites came from and how they built upon what Rogue Legacy did. And then they took all that and they improved upon the perfection that was Rogue Legacy. I love the art style. It gets that graphic fidelity boost right away. It's super high definition and high resolution detailed graphics, but it's this cartoony style, kind of like Scribblenauts if you've played that. It reminds me of that kind of a cartoony but yet really detailed style. I like it a lot. The skill tree, where I thought the skill tree was really cool in the original game, but they upgraded it and it is so beefed up now. It is amazing how many different things you can put points into. And the classes, there are so many classes to choose from. Do you know the number? Are there like 16 of them? There's a ton.
I don't know. I just know it's massively expanded upon. And
Yeah, there were a few in the original, and now there's somewhere like 12 or 16 of the classes. I don't even have them all unlocked, but I have to say, mages, amazing. Chefs, unbelievably, chefs are so cool. Gunslingers, I like how you can jump in the air and fire in different directions. That allows you to avoid a lot of enemies, especially the melee enemies that can't reach you. You just jump above them and shoot down. And the pizza knight, I'll tell you what, once I got the pizza ability for the knight, and I don't know how I got it, I just restarted, and all of a sudden my knight had a pizza. He was throwing pizzas, and so that's an absolutely
it's
incredible
random.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because I was reading on it to try to figure out where this came from. It was in some update, and it's something you can unlock, but it randomly gave it to me. And all of a sudden, I'm throwing pizzas like they're like boomerang razors, and you can just keep throwing them, and they hit the guys 3 or 4 times and come back to you, and you can throw multiples. It's such a cool ability.
It's
But
like the Leviathan X kind of in God of War. I mean, it's
yeah,
wild. Yeah. Or
with
like a Captain
pizzas.
America shield. Yeah.
Right.
Pizza.
And so all these new classes have made the game even more fun. Like I was fine on Rogue Legacy. If this game didn't exist, I'd still be playing Rogue Legacy. I'd be putting all my time into it because it's so fun. But it took that and made it even more interesting because you have so many classes, which completely changed your gameplay, your strategy. And I'm having really a fun time with those new classes. What I noticed about this game is it seemed easier than Rogue Legacy. Like Rogue Legacy, and even though I was new to the game, but like I was dying so frequently, it was ridiculous how I would go into the castle, die, go into the, and I would hardly make it anywhere. This game, I think, is a better entry level to players because it kind of lures you in with this false security because you're like, oh yeah, I could play this game. It seemed really easy from the start. But the further you get into the castle, and especially when you get to like the next stage, if you go down to the tunnels or whatnot, that's like instant death. I mean, I can't hardly. I think I've put 10 or 12 hours into this game. I'm maybe level 40 something with upgrades. And yeah, if I go into the tunnels where there's no lights and you're just like following, there's like a little orb of light around you and the rest is dark. Yeah, I can't do anything in there. So the game is still super hard, but I like how at least when you start, it doesn't make you like some people may be prone to give up. Like this game's just too hard. And I think they did a really good job of letting you ease into it, but still it's very challenging. And then yeah, just I love all the skill levels. My one complaint about it, and I'm not necessarily saying this is a bad thing, but because of my style of play, how I want to unlock everything, just how we were talking about side quests and how I want to go pick up all the books and stuff in Skyrim and apples and steal it all. Like with this game, there's so many the skill tree is so massive. I want to unlock everything, which means I have like 1 point in everything. and I'm not good enough to get anywhere with that. So I have to grind and keep playing to power, level my guy up. But yeah, I'm having a blast with it. It is so good. And every time I'm working, I'm thinking about how I want to be playing Rogue Legacy 2.
That's a good feeling. Well, one pro tip I will tell you is that with the skill tree, if there is an ability that pops up that is one of one, that's something developers want you to get. So if you're listening to this and you're not playing the game yet, or you just started or whatever, just know that if there's something that's there and it says one of one, those are kind of like expected critical skills. They're classes or major abilities. Like there's so many different times you can get things to level up your intelligence scaling or your attack scaling, dex, and all these different things that you can just do over and over and over. But the ones that are one of one are really important. And then the other big thing with the skill tree is it's interesting to note that it goes left and right. And so unlike a typical tower, because at first when the game starts, you really feel like you're just going to be building up. But you can keep picking skills on the far right of the tree and sometimes on the far left, and it will begin to open up new columns of the tower. Like it goes pretty far out to the right as well. It's not nearly just a vertical tower.
I've seen the picture.
It's massive. Yeah.
The picture of the completed skill tree, or at least, I don't know, pretty far into it. Someone that I think was level 300 had leveled stuff up pretty well. And
I'm 94, and that's insane to me. 300.
It was like, this guy was like 294 or something. It was definitely the high 200s. So clearly they put, 10 out of 10 and all the stuff they could. But I saw how massive that thing was, and I'm like, I'm going to get there, but I don't know when I'll have the time to. But this game is so fun with the new abilities and keeping you interested to keep leveling things up and trying new classes. And whatever they do with this formula, this is my game. I think I said on the first episode that looter shooters were kind of my thing, and I still love them, but no, it's roguelites. That's my genre.
Yeah,
this game keeps my interest, and it does something that other ones, like, it's not a story thing. It's even though the gameplay is so similar, it the levels keep changing. There's all these different classes now, different ways to play the game. This keeps my interest to where I could pick this up anytime, whether I have an hour or 5 hours of free time, and I am so into it and don't want to do anything else. So I've definitely found my genre here.
Brad, how's your experience with it been so far?
Really good. I've dove in a lot deeper than I thought I was going to right away, because I put so much time in the first one. Yeah, I picked this up like there was no break whatsoever, and jumped right in. I think I'm level 60 something now. I've been having a lot of good runs, a lot of gold focused runs, because I want to get those skills and try to make the next run as even better than the last. And Kevin's really nailed most of everything that I like about it too. The funniest class that I found was actually this afternoon before the podcast. It wasn't a class, it was a trait. He was a pacifist, or all he did was carry around a sign with a peace sign on it, and you couldn't hurt anybody, but all the gold was 175%, I think. So I was just raking in money. I think I made like 6,000 gold just in that first area walking around. It was really tough to not kill anything, because in some screens there would be things just shooting at you all over, and you can't do anything about it but just kind of knock them away. But I've had the most success with the Valkyrie and the Mage. I think Kevin mentioned the Mage, or Aaron did, one of you two. I like being at a distance.
Mage is really good.
Yeah. And actually got the first boss down today as well. So that was really exciting. But I booted up the original game just to see where I was at with that one a little bit ago, and it was level 600. That's how much time I put into it. But yeah, everything about this is improved. The look of it, the feel of it, like Kevin said, it is very very easy to pick up, and it doesn't I forget how you worded it, but it doesn't it hits you later on once you get in those tunnels and everything, where it just hits you with surprise. This is going to be a lot harder than you think it is.
Yeah, because I'm like, this game's easy. I played the first one and I'm dying left and right. I was embarrassed with, like, I was trying to figure out a way to zoom out to see if I could see my legacy, my family tree. And if I did, I was going to be too embarrassed to share it, because I knew I had died 100 and something times already. Like, it's just, I was dying. And this one, I'm like, okay, I could play this. And then as soon as you get into it, it's like, no, this is still extremely challenging.
I got a random cutscene today too. That's where I was wondering if it was the number of times I died that triggered it. It said something about 1,000 years, and I went back and I counted each one of my errors, and it was 36 deaths. I don't know if that was something that triggered it or what that cutscene was, but that made me go back and look at how many times I had died, and I know I still got a lot to figure out. I like going through the maps and figuring out what the relics are. Even if I'm having a good run, I'm like, "Oh, this is a new relic. I want to see what it does and if it's going to benefit my run." A lot of times it doesn't, and I'll have a curse that where everything's fatal, and that's really what messes up my runs if I get that one hit curse. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, there's a deep lore that they've built into the game, and I don't know the cutscene you're talking about. I probably either got it a long, long time ago, or it wasn't in existence when I passed whatever mark it was that you just passed. But there is sort of a challenge system built into this that is there to expand upon the gameplay. It's almost like a side quest kind of a functioning deal that you'll unlock eventually. And as you go, your minds are just going to be more and more blown because it really is more than just being bigger as a castle. So in the first Rogue Legacy, it's the castle, and you're just exploring different rooms within it, different parts of it. But this, like, once the biomes show themselves, it's 6 unique areas. One of them is the castle. The other 5 are snowy or, underground or all these different things. And they don't necessarily, they do get more difficult, but it becomes more of a roguelike where you start to unlock abilities. Have you guys, either of you, unlocked any traversal type abilities yet that have to do with jumping or maneuvering your character?
I can like dash in the air.
Did you? But you had to do a thing, right? You had to go through the little challenge course to get it. Yeah. So there's one of those per area.
Okay.
And once you find it, you are able to, there's lore attached to that. And then you're able to do that, and it will assist you in getting through the previous areas easier as well. So it actually becomes a lot harder than Rogue Legacy pretty quick, to the point where I enjoy the challenge, but I enjoy it because it's a roguelite, because I'm always making progress. I'm getting to achieve, even just one little point of 1% better strength. I get some sort of a chemical reaction in my brain that says I have a better chance than I did before, and it pushes me forward to move on. It's so different than if it was a 0 versus 1%. It could be like 0.5%, and I would feel different emotionally, mentally going into that next run, and I love that. One thing I wanted to also tell you guys, because I know you haven't beaten a ton of the bosses yet. I mean, heck, I've only gotten 2 down out of the 6. I'm on my 3rd, and I keep getting to them. I haven't beaten them yet. But each area has a special secret place. And if you unlock, I don't remember the number of them, but there's a certain number of lore scrolls around the biome. And if you find them and unlock them all, many of them are hidden behind the walls. Did the game teach you how to break walls? I can't remember if it teaches you that or okay.
You do like a special move or something, it says. And
you use your magic on the cracks. Yeah. And it can like unlock hidden areas. So there's like 10 scrolls or something. And when you read them all, they will give you a clue to where this special ability is. It's never obvious on your screen. You'll have to kind of look for it. But when you find it, it gives you a permanent plus 15% boss damage in that biome. Each one has one. So if you find it before you fight the boss, obviously that's ideal. But even if you find it afterwards, it's going to be effective if you go back to the game in a new game plus setting. So it never goes away. But it's just one of those little like things where the game is never going to tell you that. It does not outwardly push it on you. It's just a thing where if you actually explore enough, you read and actually pay attention to what the scrolls that you are finding are telling you, you can find this that gives you a significant boost. And I love that concept in games in general, where I could find something it's kind of got the same thing with Elden Ring. Like I could find something that you don't, because I was more thorough. I want to be rewarded for being the person that, pies the room is what they say when you're like entering a room and scanning it for, intruders. I don't know anyway, military police type stuff. But like when you are looking in every single piece of a map to find out what it has to offer and you get that cool bonus, it's really rewarding.
That's cool.
The other thing is there's lots and lots of systems that are just in this game that are constantly going to be unlocked. I can't remember when Resolve gets introduced. Have either of you experienced Resolve, or is that something that we started off with?
I'm working on getting more of it because I always buy those relics and cuts my health down to next to nothing sometimes. So that's where I'm trying to focus on all my points right now, is so I can start off with more of it.
Yeah, we've got it, but I don't really understand it. I know that they do the thing. I think when you spend it, it's the thing that reminded me of Hades, when you go into a room and you can pick like one thing or the other. That seems to be something that in my short time playing the first one, I didn't see that. And in this one, there's that choice of the two things, but then it always takes like 25 resolve, but I don't really know much more than that.
Yeah, the first game had a very, very minimal number of those choices, and it didn't cost necessarily anything. And so the resolve system was put into place to mitigate some broken runs. I guess in Rogue Legacy 2, originally it didn't have the resolve system. The dev was talking about how that came into play during an early access feedback loop, because people were picking up certain relics and basically they were just making relic runs where you would just go around trying to get as many relics as you could possibly get, and you would be able to break the game because you could get some incredible combinations. And so to mitigate that, they put this resolve system in where every one you take, it's going to cost you a percentage of your HP bar, essentially. So ultimately, you are limited in the number that you can take, and you kind of have to really weigh the cost. And you can play the game your way. So you could play with a high health bar and low resolve, or you could go for a low starting health and a character that has a very high resolve, and then go for a bunch of relics, which of course are random. So who knows what you're going to get and what kind of combo you're going to be able to come up with. I really like that a lot. I'm like you, Brad. I have my runs often completely stopped in their tracks, no matter what I've accomplished, because if I come across a relic and it's question marks, I have to take it. I need to unlock it. Same thing with traits. When I get my new character options, if one of them has something that I haven't seen before, well, I guess I'm that guy. Even if I don't like the character, like there's certain ones I just don't like, but I'll take them just to find out.
I'm the same way with those question marks. And that's one of the reasons why this game's so addicting. And I don't say that in a bad way, because you're not buying a bunch of loot crates or something. It's not addictive in a negative way, but it really keeps my interest because there's so much to unlock. There's so much to explore, so many different ways to play the game that it keeps my interest enough to where I want to keep playing. And like you mentioned, Aaron, if I see that, I've got this boost, like if I'm about to hang up the game and then I see, but this new character has plus 25% gold and this, that, or the other, I'm like, well, I got to play now because I want to get I want to see how that turns out. And it keeps me so hooked where, seriously, I say this now, I mean, I know eventually I'd get burnt out. You play any game, the best games, you're going to get burnt out after hundreds of hours. You're just going to want something new. But at this point right now, I have not turned on another game other than Rogue Legacy and Rogue Legacy 2. I am so satisfied and happy playing these games that I know I could do this for a while because it is that fun and interesting of a game.
Yeah, and it's addicting. It's just like it was with Hades when I played that earlier this year. It's so easy on a good run or even a bad run. When that run is over, be like, let's do one more. We've touched on that already on this podcast, but you look at the heroes, see what's on there, be like, I got time for one more. And then it just turns into an endless cycle. I'm like, I have to put this down. I have to tell myself to put this down because I just go all in on it.
Where like a full run through 3 biomes takes me an hour. And so it starts to get to that point where, you're really pushing the time. But if you do that, you can get a lot of gold, and you kind of get to the point where your runs are very different. So if I'm going for just a gold run, sometimes I'll go straight to the biome that I'm the furthest biome I've gotten to, or whatever. Like I'm the third one. I've unlocked a bunch of them because the pizza girl that you meet can unlock them permanently. So I can travel to a whole bunch of places that I would die really quickly. So I don't go there. But the one that I'm working on, the boss, like I'll go straight there and I can get, it's a higher gold drop percentage in general in the biome. And maybe I have a really good build and I just want to go straight for the boss. So I will go there and try to make my way to the boss as fast as possible. There are other times where I will go to the first biome, to the castle, and I'll just kind of really fun just dink my way through there because I'm OP at that point for that biome, but I'll do it in order to find the relics because I'm looking specifically to try and really kind of strengthen my case over the first two and then go fight a boss. So it's amazing because I feel like I don't have a plan that I do over and over. I do it differently all the time, and it's so much fun. One of the abilities I will promote to you guys and you guys listening as well, that is my favorite. My son and I went for this one right away, and we maxed it out as quick as possible. There is one that will refill your health and your MP a certain percentage when you enter a boss room.
Yep.
So we maxed it out. So now we don't have to ever worry about where we're at. Like if we could be almost dead and it won't matter because when we enter the boss room, we're going to enter it with full health and full MP. And that was a game changer for us because otherwise we would be getting ready to the point we'd be like, okay, we're going to go kill the boss on this run. That would be our plan. But we'd be, limping our way to the finish line and no real way to heal up other than to grind for, random meat drops, which could take forever. Right. And so this completely changes that for you, where if you're ready to go fight, you can go fight and you'll be, at your best possible health to do so. So yeah, I recommend that one. I love the chef. I got to say, I love the chef too. A chef and the boxer are two of my favorites. The chef in particular is one of my go-tos for bosses in general, specifically because, or champion enemies, just because of the damage over time. I love
the flame damage and deflecting and all the shots.
Yeah,
and the healing and the deflection. That the chef, I think, has the best starting traits of any character. There's so many great things to do with that. I got one rune that let me get an 8% chance from each enemy to drop health, which was great. That kept me going for a long time. And then one of the traits I got was really weird. I think it did like a plus 50%, or it might have had like 2 plus 25% healths, but I did 0 damage to enemies. So it was really frustrating because I instinctively wanted to damage enemies. I mean, I just even though I knew I couldn't, I kept trying to fight them and it would do 0 damage. The only thing I could do was use, what is it called? Spell or magic, or what is your attack is it called magic or special ability?
I don't know.
What's your alternate? The thing that uses MP, is it magic?
Your skill. I think it's your skill.
Yeah. So I could do that. And I had the one where it does like rainbow colors in a big circle and you can attack multiple enemies. But I used it twice and my MP was gone, so I couldn't fight anybody. I think I could hit them and get MP back, but it was like 10 at a time, and then it took 100 to do the rainbow thing again. So it was just a really frustrating way to play because I was getting gold. When they dropped gold, I got a ton, which was great, but I could hardly get it. So I don't know. It was a really weird one. It only happened once, but yeah, no damage to enemies.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Very, very neat the way that you can kind of get unique, different types of enjoyment out of this game for sure. So I'm glad you guys are loving it. We all three are. All heartily co-sign. This is a great game for this year, and it's well worth your money. The one feature I wish we had was cross-save. Kevin and I talked about this some offline, how we both love to play things on all our different consoles because we have every single console, and it's frustrating for me. I have 30 hours plus and 95 levels on Steam, but Steam is not convenient for me because I share it with my son, and so I have to bring my laptop out to the TV and hook it up. And I would love to just have it on my Xbox, and my friends keep saying, just buy it and start over, you'll be fine, but I can't do it. I can't mentally break myself from my progress and to do that. So it's just
a big time commitment.
I just wish it was easier for developers to create cross save. I'm sure it's not easy. I'm sure it's not just because they don't want to. There's got to be a complication to do that. But man, in my perfect world, that's how games are always going to have that.
But I'll tell you, I mean, that's how much I love this game is, we graciously received the key and were able to get it to review, and I started playing it on Steam. And then I was like, I don't want to be tied down to a computer. I had to buy it for Xbox. So that's how much I was enjoying it. I knew I was going to play this for so many hours. I got it for the Xbox. And if you haven't bought an Xbox Series X or Series S yet, and you're kind of on the fence about which one to get, or maybe you can't find a Series X, the Series S is so powerful and it runs the games, it's maybe a little bit less of a native resolution, but even playing on a 4K TV, it looks great and it performs so well. I hardly notice a difference unless I'm right up next to the TV looking at the details between the Series S and the Series X. And that Series S is so portable. Not only is it $200 less than the X, but it's so portable. I love it because I can take it from room to room and store a ton of games on it. So that's been my perfect transport between rooms system. I highly recommend a Series S if you're looking for something affordable and still very powerful.
Nice. Trying to bait me into the one major console that I don't have. I have the newest Switch, the newest Xbox, the newest PS5, and you're like, get the next and newest Xbox too. Oh man. Well, great game and highly recommended from all three of us. Is there anything else you guys have been playing this week?
Not this week. I wanted to mention I was on a beta for a game I kickstarted most of April called The Curse of the Sea Rats. I don't have a release date for it yet, but the developer is Platoon Studios. You might know them from My Friend Peppa Pig or PJ Masks. They developed those kids games, but this one is more of a adult game, I guess. I don't want to say adult, but I guess I'm a more mature
is it
game.
Leisure Suit Larry adjacent?
It's not Leisure Suit Larry.
Okay.
but no, they it's really fun. It's a hand-drawn Metroidvania where a pirate crew becomes cursed by turning into a bunch of rats, and it's all hand-drawn and it looks really cool. If you think of like the hand-drawn like Cuphead, not the actual style there, but the animation and everything, how that plays out, it's a lot of fun from what I played of it for the short time on the beta, and I'm really looking forward to it. So it's something to check out if you're interested in something like that. I think the website is curseofthesearats.com.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I played and beat. Yes, I rolled credits, multiple credits, actually. Thank you very much, because this game has like 15,000 endings. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, which came out a few days ago as of recording time. This was a new release along with Rogue Legacy 2 last week. And I wasn't going to get it because I was lukewarm on the original game. But my daughter got it. She's a humongous fan. Both of my kids were. In fact, the way that I played the first game was my PC was next to my bed in my bedroom, just for room purposes, space purposes. And I was at my computer desk playing on my PC, and both kids were sitting on the bed, like trying to watch me and direct me through the Stanley Parable. And it was just a real awkward kind of way to play it. And they had so much history with it. So they were giggling and, reacting to things, and I just wasn't connecting to it. But she was so smitten with this new version of the game because she wanted it right away. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. I like supporting indie devs because even if I don't end up loving the game, I can appreciate the fact that I helped give them some money, which they deserve and need to continue making games. And so I bought it on PS5 and I absolutely loved it. It is a phenomenal game. If you're not familiar with the Stanley Parable 1 and the kind of unique hook for this game, you're essentially a character named Stanley and you're a first person point of view, and you wake up at your desk and there's a narrator. And this narrator is kind of walking you through a scenario where everyone in your office has disappeared. So it's just you in the game, and you are in this empty space, and you're trying to figure out what has happened. And the narrator is talking nonstop, and he's like, go left, go right, do this. And you come to a couple of choices pretty instantly, where it's like the narrator told Stanley to go through the left door. Or he'll say it as if it happens. He'll say, Stanley came to a wall, and there was a blue door on the left and a red door on the right. Stanley walked through the blue door to go to his boss's office. and you can do whatever you want. So you walk through the red door, and the narrator will react, and he'll be like, Stanley clearly did not hear what the narrator said. And then he'll be like, so Stanley took the next left that he came to so that he could get back on track. And then you walk past that door, and he's like, Stanley is, off, and he will continually update what he's saying. And there are a ton of these like little branching paths. I'm very intrigued by the design aspect of this game. I would love to see how it was mapped out to account for all of the different, because you can play it in any order you want. And so it would and it reacts accordingly, sometimes with the foreknowledge of what your choices were before will be in the dialogue, where if Kevin, you may have done it differently, you may have gotten to a certain ending, because the game is all about going different paths to get an ending, right? And then the game resets you back at your desk and you kind of do it again. But it builds upon it over and over and over. You have a question?
Yeah, this reminds me of the game that I just played on Game Pass a few months ago, the one that Willem Dafoe's in.
12 minutes, the time
Yeah,
loop?
because that
I
one
didn't ever play
does,
it, but
you make decisions and it changes, and then when you restart, you know things from the previous playthroughs. It's a very similar dynamic, and maybe Stanley Parable did it first, but it just reminds me of that gameplay.
yeah, it is very much, you're building on it as, I think that's more of you're doing it as a character, right? And you're trying to solve, I think in that game, you're trying to like stop the murder from happening or something, right?
Yeah, and you learn things every playthrough. You learn more. Your character actually knows, and they make different decisions, and then they die again or whatever happens, and then you restart. But your character, the story is changing as you do it, and you get different endings based on the choices you make. So it sounds like
it's very
it's the
similar
same
then.
type of game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gameplay wise. And I can't say a lot about it story wise, because to do so would be to rob people of an incredibly awesome experience, is the only way I can tell you, is something you need to go to without knowledge of and just do it and see what happens. Because the way in which the things occur and the different endings that happen, like I hesitate to even give any hints as to what they could be, because they're some of them are so neat. Some of them are just like, okay, that happened and it was over. But there's a lot of humor here, and what you ultimately learn about Stanley and his situation is very interesting. And the way that the game built upon the original game, this Ultra Deluxe, is essentially a sequel. There's a whole bunch of extra content, more than I expected to be there, and it integrates itself in a really cool way, because you can still do all of the original endings, but now some of the original endings, you can get the original ending, but now you'll get it with a different flair because of things that have happened once you get to the point where you experience the new content. It's all about like experiencing these different endings and going through this loop. And I had a blast. I mean, I've done it. I don't know how many times I've died, but dozens upon dozens upon dozens of loops of this game, and I'm not done yet. And it's a fun, easy platinum trophy to get. Well, I say it's easy to get. It's mostly simplistic, with the exception of the two that are sort of, you kind of have to cheese, or you have to be really proud of doing the work. So in the original Stanley Parable, there was an achievement called Go Outside, and you had to not play the game for 5 years. That's how you get the achievement. In this one, there's an achievement or trophy called Super Go Outside, and it's don't play the game for 10 years. So anybody that has the platinum for this game is a flat out liar who changed the clock on their PS5 in order to cheese it. Yeah, and I haven't done it, and I don't think I'm going to do it, because I think it would be really cool to eventually one day have it. There's another one that is play the game for the entirety of a Tuesday. Now, that one, I think I'm going to have to you're going to have to turn off rest mode and leave your console on all day long or something. I think you could probably cheese it in the, you could edit in file or something in Steam version to probably get it. But yeah, it's crazy. It's almost like it doesn't want you to care about that. And it has a ton of that sort of on the nose, fourth wall type commentary in the game itself. It is commentating on what it means to be a sequel and how it's being implemented as you're playing the sequel. It's just really clever, and I couldn't recommend it more. before. So
That's such a
yeah,
cool
I'm
concept.
big fan. I had a great experience with it, so I would.
You should
recommend
play 12 minutes because
I
the
will.
story's really interesting. They do a good job. The voice
The
acting's good.
actors
And
are so good.
yeah, and it's the same concept where you want to find out this mystery and what's going on because there is a story behind it, and then also the way you play it determines what happens in the story. And I think it'd be worth your time, and I bet you can beat it a lot faster too because I don't think there's that many endings, but there's enough to keep it interesting and the replay value's there. So definitely check that out if you like this one, and I'm gonna check out your game too. Do a game swap.
I will do that. Yeah, we can make that deal. I had actually was extremely excited for 12 minutes when it first got announced. I follow Annapurna releases pretty
I love their
closely
games. I love their
because they're
games.
also a movie studio for us, and so
Right.
I've been familiar with their film releases, and their narrative matters to them, and that translates into their indie games that they publish. And then 12 minutes got just review bombed when it came out, and so I was I bounced off trying it because I was into other stuff. But we'll definitely do that. All right, well, that's the games for the week. Let's talk some news. There's quite a bit has happened in the past week, and I picked out a few different topics for us to kind of discuss here. One of the biggest ones is that Square Enix has sold Crystal Dynamics, Square Enix Montreal, and Eidos Montreal, some of their studios that have developed games in such properties as Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Thief, The Legacy of Kain, a whole bunch. There's like more than 50 back catalog of different IPs that were sold to this group called Embracer Group for $300 million. And Embracer Group it's a kind of a conglomerate of a whole bunch of studio distributors. I don't know how this whole ecosystem works as well as I probably should, but they were formerly THQ Nordic, if you're familiar with that name. And essentially, what this deal does is it seemingly gets Square Enix out of Western game development. And Square Enix's statement on the matter said that they were doing it because they wanted to focus their investments in blockchain, AI, and the cloud. So there's a lot to unpack here. $300 million for IPs like Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Thief, and The Legacy of Kain alone feels like
that sounds crazy. I don't
chunk
know
change
how.
to me. I don't know.
Yeah, those are big games, and I love the Tomb Raider games. I absolutely adore Deus Ex, Thief. I mean, the Thief games are really good, and and there's the older games like Legacy of Kain that I haven't heard of in a long time, but I always used to enjoy those games. That seems like a lot of properties just between Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, like 300 million. It's a bargain.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it is, and I am hopeful about this deal personally because while I love the newest Tomb Raider reboot series, and Tomb Raider's an all-time favorite series for me coming from Crystal Dynamics, there have been rumors that Square's involvement was not always on the most helpful side, despite the money coming from there. And the studios aren't changing, right? Eidos Montreal, Crystal Dynamics, Square Enix Montreal, these studios are not suddenly wiping their staff out and starting over. It's the same people. It's the same groups that have made these games before, just with a different leadership structure overhead. And my hope is that they're given maybe more freedom. Maybe there's just more understanding coming from the top of what Western audiences want. Crystal Dynamics, these studios are responsible for games that have seemingly, quote, flopped lately. Marvel's Avengers, which I shouldn't say seemingly Marvel's Avengers, it did flop, like really badly, actually. Crystal Dynamics moved away from Tomb Raider in order to make that. It just did not hit in the way that they were hoping.
It's not a good game. I bought that day one, and I don't think I ever played it again. It just wasn't there.
But they also made Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a game that essentially has undersold in its quality. It won Game of the Year, I think, for narrative feature at the Game Awards last year. It's a highly acclaimed game that is extremely good, and it's not making the money that it needs. And I wonder if maybe with a different backer behind them, marketing will be different. I don't know what it's going to do, but I've seen a lot of chatter on social media from games people, whether it's journalists or content creators and people like us, podcasts, etc., who seem to think that there's something wrong with this or that are a little bit concerned. But I personally I think it's pretty much a positive, in my opinion. And if Square Enix gets out of this, they can just, you know what? If they want to focus, the blockchain thing, I mean, do what you want. But like, if they're going to focus on development of their properties that they have in-house over in Japan, like, I love those games. So by all means, put all your resources into Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy and, your Triangle Strategy and Octopath Traveler game. Like, I'm good with that. I can live.
Yeah, I don't know where I feel or where I land on that yet. The 300 million seemed awfully low for a franchise, especially just the Tomb Raider franchise alone, how the history that it has in the gaming industry, and how I thought that the last 3 games were really good. But I heard some interesting stuff yesterday, just browsing around and getting other people's opinions on it, that, like you said, with the Western game, getting out of the Western gaming, that it maybe Square was positioning itself to be one of the studios that one of the major players are acquiring, like Microsoft or Nintendo or Sony, especially since, all of their games seem to be on those 2 platforms for the most part. Yeah, I don't have a strong feeling for it one way or the other yet. I'm still excited. I know a new Tomb Raider is supposedly in development, so I mean, that's not going to change.
And they confirmed that's going to continue, by the way. So they have come out and said that's not changing.
Yeah, so as the gamer in me, it's just like I'm curious as to what's going to happen now, as we seem to be in a place now where studios are just getting acquired like crazy, and this seems like a position move to maybe find some value and get acquired by somebody. But as just a normal average gamer like myself, until it affects the games I want to play, it's just a more industry story than it is something that affects me, So I don't have a super strong opinion on it.
Well, I bet you'll have an opinion on this. So rumors are continuing to grow about the possible Unreal Engine 5 remake of The Last of Us. There are more and more. Every day it feels like someone saying, "Oh, I've scraped the internet somehow and found this random screenshot or line of text, or somebody posted a job for someone that designs trees, so that means they're definitely be making The Last of Us for the PS5." But how do you guys feel about this? Are you like done with remakes of games that are not that old? I mean, I don't know. What is The Last of Us, 10 years old? Or do we want this? Do we want Naughty Dog to be putting their resources into this?
I don't think Naughty Dog's making it, from what I understand, from what I've heard on podcasts and just news information from the past, because I've always understood that this is coming, but it's probably going to be like Blue Point Studio or somebody, like they did with the Nathan Drake collection. And I think that I guess this is all alleged. I don't think anything's confirmed yet, which is why we're talking about it now. But I think Sony's like trying to line it up to capitalize on the release of the HBO series. So if this does come out, like I think the rumors right now are that it's coming out this year or late this year. But whenever, I think it's going to be more positioned along the lines of when the HBO series is coming out, if in fact it is real, which I think all evidence points to it is happening. But at the same time, I never thought it was absolutely necessary, because the remastered version of the game for PS4 is perfect. It's in every way, shape, and form. It's just a better version of the original game, and I don't know what exactly they're doing with it besides just beefing it up a little bit.
We need 60 frames per second PS5 version. That's all it's to it. It's such a masterpiece of a game that I think Aaron can totally relate, since he loves all the new shiny stuff. Just to bring that game and that story to the next gen feel, I think that would instantly make me want to replay it. I've been kind of hesitating to go back and play it, especially with news of it coming. So I would love to see it. Any of these remakes, the really good ones, the Resident Evils that we mentioned, Final Fantasy VII, the ones that they're really putting the time and resources into, the quick remasters are hit and miss. Sometimes it's nice to get a little bit of a fidelity upgrade, but if they're just slapping it at a higher resolution and upgrading some textures, no. But to get a full Unreal Engine 5 remake of this masterpiece in storytelling and great gameplay mechanics, yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, I'm there. I will go on record as saying arguably favorite game of all time. The narrative is my favorite game of all time from that perspective. And where I get really conflicted between this and Last of Us 2 is the gameplay, is because The Last of Us 2's gameplay is so refined and so phenomenal moment to moment. And when you do replay The Last of Us, even the remastered version, there's still some sluggishness to it because they were learning, and it was, that's how games work. So if you give me this exact game, everything is the same. Dialogue, level structure, everything works, but the shooting is tighter and works like it did in Last of Us 2, and the movement is 60 FPS, and it, is gorgeous and in complete 4K or whatever. Like, yes, I would be fine with even Naughty Dog putting their resources into that, because I think it is that incredible of a game. And I'm with you what you said, Brad, 100%. I think it's timed to drop with the HBO show. I mean, it is, that's what Sony's done it before with Ratchet and Clank. There was a Ratchet and Clank movie that came out with the Ratchet and Clank game. They were actually the same story, kind of different versions of it or different perspectives of it in a sense, but like they were tied together. And I think that from a marketing standpoint, you would blow it out of the water if you were able to do that.
Did Final Fantasy do that with the Advent?
I think they did it with, I don't know if they did it with Advent Children for Final Fantasy. That came way after Final Fantasy 7.
But wasn't there another Final Fantasy?
They did it with Kingsglaive, Final Fantasy 15, Kingsglaive.
Okay.
There's actually quite a bit of different, there's an anime as well that goes with that movie and that game. Okay. There's a whole bunch of like media. So yeah, I think for sure that it is going to be tied to that. And you're right, maybe it is Bluepoint or somebody, because I know Naughty Dog is working on the multiplayer, supposedly working on the multiplayer for The Last of Us 2, which, I don't personally care about. I know a lot of people actually like the multiplayer in The Last of Us and in the Uncharted games. I've never.
It's really good. At least
but you talked about it. One. Yeah, you talked about it you talked about Uncharted multiplayer a little bit on one of our episodes.
Yeah, the Uncharted one's fine. I played the most Uncharted 2 multiplayer because that's what got me into the franchise. I'm sorry, and Donut Drake.
Donut Drake, that's right. That's where Donut Drake came from. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, the factions on Last of Us, I put a lot of time into that, and it's I'm not as good at it as I wish I was, because that's the only reason I don't have the platinum for The Last of Us, is because you have to get through a whole season of that, and it's very much survivalist. You have to get on these certain missions, and there's a point in, I think it's like a 15-week thing where you're trying to keep survivors alive. And there's a point where like the plague comes and wipes out half your crew, and if you don't get the rations and everything to keep them up, and you lose, everybody in your base, or I forget the terminology for it. It's been so long that you have to start all over. And I just got so wiped out on trying to get those 2 trophies that I never platinumed Last of Us, and it kills me to this day because I want that trophy so bad. But I just, at this point, everybody who plays factions still is really, really good at it, and I'm not at that level to do it.
That sucks. I gotta admit, like that would be very frustrating for me if it was just down to like that one thing. But
I can't do survival games. I don't have the patience for it, the time to do it. Like I enjoy them, and I get really excited about getting further and building up all this stuff. But then as soon as I die and have to start over, it's so frustrating to me that I just give up.
All right. Well, one of the other ones that I wanted to ask you guys about, because this one is close to my heart, is news that dropped just today about the Prince of Persia remake. So it's a game from the early 2000s. It started a franchise, or I don't know if it was a remake itself. Probably was. I don't know. But
the original was a side scroller.
Okay. I thought it was something akin to that. So it was a remake itself, but a very good one, and one that helped to really start the genre that would be kind of 3D parkour platforming in a way that became quite prevalent in a lot of games.
Assassin's Creed.
Right. Specifically, yeah. And so they announced a few years ago they were going to remake the first game, which The Sands of Time, which I was like, yes, let's freaking go. Love this game, even like the problematic movie with Jake Gyllenhaal to some extent. And they delayed it multiple times. It got delayed from first was supposed to be out January 2021. That got pushed to March 2021. Then that got pushed to, sometime before spring of 2023. And then today, they announced that they were taking the game and moving it from its current studio development teams, Ubisoft Pume and Ubisoft Mumbai, and they were giving it to Ubisoft Montreal to work on. And I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on this game, but I can tell you I'm very sad personally. I'm a little bit worried because when a game starts getting moved between studios this late into what it should have been out 2 years ago or a year ago, I guess, year and a half ago, per their original plan, it's hard for things to recover from that, in my opinion. And I'm going to be real bummed if this game does not turn out well. But do you guys have any skin in this game? Did you play the originals?
I mean, I played them. I enjoyed them. I don't think I had as deep of a love as you did, but I did enjoy them a lot. But also I want to say they're moving it to Ubisoft Montreal. They make great games. So I think that gives me more confidence that they're like, hey, we know the fans want this. This can be huge. Let's focus on this. Let's give it to, these guys that know what they're doing. And so that, to me, I think that's a big boost in confidence for me that the remake's going to be really good. And if it does really well, then we'll see a new, brand new game.
And I've never played any of the Prince of Persia games, so
okay.
I don't have any skin in the game whatsoever.
We need the remake then. We need the remake, and we need it to be good so that Brad can play it and experience it. They're actually really good. Like, all of them are fun. I've played them all, but like that game it just has a really cool mechanic, Brad. Not only does it have parkour in the way that Assassin's Creed did, a lot of with its first 2 or 3 games, but it has the Sands of Time is essentially a rewind mechanic. And so it was all about like traversal and parkour traversal. And then when you would make a mistake, you could activate the Sands of Time and it would kind of do this really awesome animation, and it's tied to the mythological nature of the story in the Middle East. And it would take you back and let you kind of redo a very brief section. And so you would use it frequently. It was not a mechanic that was just there to use if you wanted to. It was really built into the DNA of the game, and you were intended to use it, and had pretty good combat and a pretty cool story. Yeah, I just really liked it. So, but I appreciate what you just said, Kevin. You're right. I mean, Ubisoft Montreal has made some good games, and they actually did do the most recent Prince of Persia game that came out for the 360, I want to say about a decade ago or so, and it was fine. It didn't do nearly as big as the original did, but it was a good game. So I'll cross my fingers and retain a little bit of hope thanks to that.
Good.
Well, last one I wanted to talk about, I just want to find out, are you guys watching the Halo TV show, or am I the only one that's doing this? I see Brad shaking his head.
Nothing but terrible things about it. I have not even attempted to start it.
I've heard it's gotten better, but I just don't have the interest.
So I've been watching this from week 1. I was excited for it, and sometimes when I'm excited for things, there's kind of like a bar. And if you cross the bar in my excitement and it's higher, I will not watch the preview copies that I tend to get sent, because they'll send you like the first 4 episodes. And I'm like, I don't want to be ahead of the rest of the world when we're talking about a show that comes out weekly, which is still my favorite way of releasing a show. I like the conversation and reacting every week as we go. So I've been just going with it week by week. The first 20 minutes of the show were pretty incredible. It starts off with an attack, and the USNC is there, and they're trying to protect a colony, and the Covenant is attacking the colony, and the Marines show up, and the Spartans are there, and they do so much awesome work from an action standpoint, and the detail. They occasionally shift into like visor mode of the helmet, just like you would see from the game. The guns look exactly like they do in the games. There are sequences where Master Chief like unloads a pistol while he's running and slides, unloads the pistol, throws the pistol and hits a grunt with it, and then picks up an auto rifle BR. And like, it's just incredibly cinematic version of it's what I wanted. After that 20 minutes, it shifts into like the next like 4 episodes or whatever are like this dramatic thing where he takes off his helmet at the end of the first episode. The entire second episode, he doesn't really have his helmet on at all. And it's all about his emotions and making him a character as a person that you can relate to. And it lost us. It was not very good storytelling. It's kind of like in an alternate timeline. It's not quite the exact same thing. And there's some new characters, but there's enough that you'll relate to and you'll be like, yeah, I understand this and this, but then there's new things that are in there that tweak it in a weird way.
The creators said they didn't like even base it off the games. Like they didn't attempt to even try to mimic the games, which are of course the most popular. I know there's books and everything. I have some of them, but the fan base is coming because they love the games and they're like, yeah, we're not doing any of that.
Yeah, I mean, they did in the sense that there's the Covenant and there's artifacts that they're trying to find, and they're trying to find the Halo ring. You know, like those, and there's Spartans, and the Spartans were made by Dr. Halsey. Like those aspects of it remain intact, but the overall way in which those things occurred have been changed. And I don't like a lot of them. I don't like how dramatic heavy the show is. It's an hour-long episodes, and so you can imagine just how stretched out they really are getting with it. Well, the 5th episode, and I forget who directed them, but the 5th and 6th episodes were directed by the same person. And they have really started to at least make it a turn. So I'm not going to say the show is good and that overall I'm going to have a super positive response to it when it's over. But I can say that the 5th episode was almost entirely a battle. So by nature, it was awesome. And like, that's what I wanted to see. And it was really positive there. And then the 6th episode kind of continued that and ratcheted up the tension and got a little less dramatic and more suspenseful. And things start to happen finally. Like, it was moving in the right direction. Now it's moving in the right direction after sliding down a mountain. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. It's not like you're near the mountaintop. You're still at the bottom, but at least you're reclimbing again instead of dangling, I guess. But
Okay.
yeah, I'd be curious, you know, eventually if you ever check it out, I'd love to hear what you think, because I'm very mixed on it, but I feel, and I don't even have the Halo history that a lot of people have. I came to the games very late, but even with the history I do have, having played them all, I, you know, do want the most of it. I want it to be really good. And it's just unfortunate because I feel like there were so many potential great adaptations of this game, whether it was Peter Jackson or whether it was Neil Blomkamp. I've seen short films from them that was amazing, and they just don't nail the tone here, and I don't quite love it at all. So
I'm getting tired of Neil Blomkamp getting fired from projects and not making stuff because he's so good. And then you think like, oh, he could do a Halo thing, and oh, he could do an Alien thing, and they just don't give this guy the stuff. And I think he's really got the talent. I know that all his stuff hasn't been perfect, but I've liked a lot of it. And I wish that he would take on some of these projects and properties.
I don't know much. I never was into Halo for the lore. I was always in it for the multiplayer with my friends. I have a couple of friends who are big into the books of Halo and the lore of the games and everything. And every conversation I've had with them was that this show is not Halo. It's the description that I've heard from them was it is a sci-fi show that's reskinned with Halo is kind of like the consensus of it. But I've heard on the flip side, I've heard people say that it, like you said about episodes 5 and 6, where it's really turning around and being really good, and kind of interested, but I have so many things on my backlog and so many movies even that I haven't watched yet that are going to come first. So one of these days, maybe it'll make it to my screen, but it's just not there right now for me.
Totally understandable. Yeah, you got to make choices. That's the thing. There's so much content, whether it's movies, TVs, or video games out there, that you got to come with quality right off the bat. You can't be lackadaisical and expect to find an audience. There's too many options. Yeah, Kevin.
I looked up episode 5 and 6, directed by Jonathan Liebsman, who directed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning, The Killing Room, Battle Los Angeles, Wrath of the Titans, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Shannara Chronicles, not familiar with that one, and directed reshoots on Doolittle. So he's done a lot of stuff.
Listen, none of that is indicative of what I just so what we're saying is he has had a career renaissance with the 5th and 6th episodes of Halo, because that stuff you just talked about was
You're not a Battle Los Angeles
I think you're
fan?
hurting my case more than helping it here, but
he's a working director though. The guy's been around.
Oh, a working, is that the bar? Is that the bar? No, yes, we got a working director.
I don't know. I was
like,
trying.
yes.
I was trying to look up his filmography, be like, yeah, he's the guy that did. Oh,
yeah. Ooh,
Hey,
Ubisoft
but-
Montreal knows how to code. Yay! You know, I don't know.
But he directed Wrath of the Titans and not the second Wrath of the Titans.
No,
movie,
Wrath of
right?
the Titans is the
No,
second
Wrath of
one.
the Titans
The
is
first
the
is
second, yeah.
Clash is the
Clash.
first.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Well, I don't even have that. Never
Wrath
mind.
Wrath is
Yeah.
not as good.
Okay, sorry.
So-
No, I don't know. But check out Halo 5 and 6.
Yeah, probably. If you want. Anyway. All right. Well, I think that's it for us on this episode. Listeners, as always, if you like what you hear, by all means, please subscribe so you can get all of our new episodes as they're released as well. And let your friends know that you like the show, because sharing us via word of mouth is the best thing you could do. Second best thing you could do, or third best thing you could do, is probably second and third best things you could do. Follow us on social media, share us on social media, and please drop us a review, specifically on Apple Podcasts. If you have the ability to do that, it would be very helpful if you can give us 5 stars and a few words about what you like about us.
And anyone that leaves us a review between now and the end of the month, so for the month of May, I will draw randomly a winner to get a free copy of Cyberpunk 2077 on either Xbox or PS4/5.
Wow.
So
Okay.
give us a review and I will pick a winner and you'll get a free game. And it's a really good game. That's a game that I put over 100 hours into. You know, I don't have time to beat a lot of games and don't try to beat. I guess we'll use the word beat because I did beat the story. But I've done, I think I'm on my 3rd playthrough of the story with a different character. I absolutely love the game. And so I'd love to give a copy away to someone that hasn't played it.
That's awesome. Very generous of you. Didn't know we had a budget, but hey, I'm going to... Kevin,
we don't, but I'll be happy to. A little incentive for you to leave us a review. It really does help and means a lot to us. And hey, get something out of it, maybe.
Yeah. So let us know if you leave a review anywhere other than Apple Podcasts, because we might not see it. We'll see Apple's. They're very obvious to track that way. But if you leave a review on a podcast app that you use to listen that is not Apple, just shoot us a screenshot on Twitter or send an email or whatever, just so that we know and we can enter you in that drawing for the free game. That's it for us on this episode. We'll be back next week, but thank you so much for listening. This podcast is for you. We will be back soon. So get out there and fall in love with the game.